An old man is led to the edge of a cliff. His working days are behind him. He can't hunt. He can't farm. He can't pull his weight, and in a hard world that makes him a burden. So his own family walks him to the drop, and either he jumps or they help him, one less mouth to feed before winter. You have probably heard some version of this. The brutal Viking custom of throwing your elderly off a cliff once they got too old to be useful. It turns up in documentaries, in video games, in TV shows. It has a name, and there are real cliffs in Scandinavia you can visit today, marked as the places where it happened. There is just one problem. It almost certainly never happened, and the true story of where this legend comes from is far stranger, and honestly far more damning, than the myth itself. The legend is called the Edastupan. In Swedish, et means family or clan, and stupa means to fall, the kin precipice, the family cliff. The idea is simple and grim. In the pagan North before Christianity, when an elder became too frail to contribute, they went off the edge, sometimes willingly, to spare the family the cost, sometimes not. And people believe it, partly because it sounds like something Vikings would do, and partly because you can actually drive to these cliffs. They are on maps, they carry the name, so it must be real. Here is how a joke became a fact carved into a mountainside. Start with the evidence, because that is where the whole thing falls apart. There is no law describing it, no chronicle recording it, no archaeologist has ever dug up a single thing to support it. For a supposedly widespread custom across all of Norse Scandinavia, the historical record is completely silent. Almost. Because there is exactly one old source that mentions a cliff like this. And it is not a history book. It is a comedy. It comes from a medieval Icelandic saga, in a section whose title translates to the tale of the fools from the valley, and it is a satire. It is about a family so absurdly, pathologically cheap that they would genuinely rather die than spend a single coin on a guest or suffer even the smallest loss. They keep a cliff nearby, and one by one, over trivial nonsense, they hurl themselves off it. A slave eats too much? Off the cliff. A small embarrassment? Off the cliff. It is played entirely for laughs. Dark, medieval laughs, but laughs. This is not the record of a solemn ritual. It is the Norse version of a sketch about the stingiest people alive. The cliff is a punchline. The entire point is that these people are ridiculous. So, how did a punchline turn into an ancient practice that everyone thinks they know about? Jump forward to the 1600s. Sweden is busy building a national identity, and part of that is romanticizing a proud, dramatic pagan past. Antiquarians, the early historians and collectors of the age, went looking for that old world in the landscape, and they started doing something quietly disastrous. They began attaching the name Edastupan to real cliffs. In Västergötland, in Dalsland, across the countryside. Think about what that does. Give a real cliff a grim name, and the name starts to imply a story. The story implies it must have happened somewhere, or why else would the place be called that? The geography became the evidence. A fictional cliff from a comedy got copied onto real rock, and the real rock made the fiction feel true. You can stand at one of these places today. The cliff is real. The sign might even be real. The custom never was. People did eventually push back. In the late 1800s, the Swedish linguist Adolf Norén openly questioned whether any of it had ever been real. And today, historians broadly agree. There is no credible evidence that the ättestupan was ever a practiced custom. Not in Sweden, not in Norway, not in Iceland. The organized killing of the old as some Norse ritual simply is not there in the record. The one source was always a joke, and everything after it was people mistaking that joke for memory. So, you might think that is the end of it. A myth. Busted. Except, the story refused to die. It just changed jobs. Because a legend this vivid is too useful to waste, and in the 20th century the ättestupan came back, not as history, but as an accusation. After the Second World War, the Swedish writer Ivar lo-Johansson used it as a weapon against his own country. He looked at Sweden's modern institutions for the elderly, the care homes, the quiet warehousing of old people out of sight, and he reached for the cliff. "We do not throw them off the edge anymore," was the implication. "We just found a tidier way to put them away." The myth had become a mirror. And it happened again in our own lifetime. During the COVID-19 pandemic, as critics attacked how Sweden handled the virus in its care homes and the deaths among the elderly, the old accusation surfaced one more time: Edastupan. That a society had quietly decided its oldest members were a burden it could afford to let go of. So here is what the Edastupan actually is. It is not a window into how Vikings treated their elders. On that question, it tells you almost nothing. What it is a joke that got mistaken for history, stamped onto real cliffs until the rock itself seemed to confirm it, and then handed down as a weapon we still pick up whenever we want to accuse ourselves of abandoning the people who can no longer keep up. The cliff was never real, but the fear underneath it is. That quiet dread that one day you will be counted as a burden and that the people around you will decide it is easier if you are simply gone. That fear is very real and very old, which is exactly why, 500 years after a medieval comedian invented a cliff, we still cannot let it go.